to our Tableau Tuesday today. We are featuring Chandler Unified School District. I am thrilled to have them on with us, and thank you for everyone else for making the time. I know I think we say this every time, but it is a very busy time of year, especially for a lot of us in K12. So really appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to join us. Okay, here is, my goodness. A little bit about us if you are new or just need a refresher. We are your dedicated K12 team here at Tableau. My name is Kelly Rich. I represent the states in green, so quite a few in K12, including the guests that are on the call with us today. So really, really happy to be here. Also on the call is Sarah Swanbeck, who covers the state of California. Courtney Little, I saw she logged on. She covers Texas. Melinda is here as well. She's got the orange, and Bat has everything in blue. Sam Mickens is our solutions engineer. He's on PTO this week, so unable to join the call. But I'm sure a lot of you have had the pleasure of working with him over the years. So he is here to support always from a technical side. And then we are led by Cassidy Macias, who runs our K12 and local government business. So this is a little bit about us. If we haven't been able to meet, virtually face to face, we would love the opportunity to, but do appreciate, again, everyone taking the time today. A little bit of housekeeping. The session will be recorded thanks to Matt Gagliardi. And if you can, we will be monitoring the chat, but it is a little bit easier for us to keep track of questions if we're using the Q&A feature in Zoom. So if you can remember, try to use that for your questions. This way we can capture them as they come in and make sure that they get addressed at the end. We love the chat. We love people using the chat for just communicating, networking, saying hi to each other. So definitely leverage that as much as you'd like. But if you have a question, appreciate you using the Q&A if possible. And then we will send out the recording and the materials as well after this call. Usually within about a week, we try to send that follow-up. So everything will come your way. If you have colleagues who maybe missed today's call but registered, they'll still get the materials because they signed up for it. But if you see something that you really love today, please feel free to tell your colleagues as well and share that material with them. I think with that, we'll be flipping it over to Chandler. As I said at the top of the call, they've been a client of ours. They'll tell their story. They've been a client of ours for some time. I've had the pleasure of working specifically with, there's two doctors in the house today, Dr. Woods and Dr. Fletcher. So just want to shout them out. They've done some phenomenal work. They are very willing to kind of chat and collaborate and put heads together. And we so appreciate them taking the time today to tell their story, highs and lows, lessons learned, and also share out some dashboards. So without further ado, I will stop sharing and flip it over to the Chandler team. Okay, you guys should be good.
Oh wait, make sure Kent can get it rolling.
Yeah, if not, I can always reshare.
Kent, you okay? What's happening? I'm not seeing anything. Are you guys seeing anything?
Not yet.
Yeah, I'm trying to share the screen. It's giving me some issues. Just give me a second.
Okay.
Do you want me to kick us off? I can share.
There we go.
There we go.
It's just delayed. Lag time.
Okay, all good.
All right, Kent, flip us to the next slide. Good morning to those of us who are on the West Coast or in Arizona don't do daylight savings time. And good afternoon to those on Mid and East Coast. I am Dr. Jennifer Fletcher, and officially my title is Executive Director of Accountability Assessment and Research. So today you're going to hear from Dr. Kent Woods. He is part of my research team, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them as we progress. I actually have over a decade experience across the pre-K-12 through higher ed and the state. So I've worked at every level, which I don't think a lot of folks get that opportunity. It wasn't always by not that it wasn't by choice, but wasn't where I thought my path would take me. But I'm glad where I landed, and I've been with CUSD for 4 years now.
And then I'm Dr. Woods. I've worked in higher education for a few years, collecting grants and analyzing the data from said grants. And the data was collected in different school districts around the valley here in Phoenix. And I've been at Chandler Unified School District for 2 years now as a data analyst.
All right, so a little bit about Chandler. We are a pre-K12 school district, and we are the second largest in the state of Arizona. We have roughly 43,000 students, 48 schools, and then you can see this screenshot is from one of our district dashboards that we have. Tells a little bit in a quick picture. We have over 5,000 employees, roughly 22.2 students for every teacher. You can see 43,000 students, but as most districts in Arizona are facing, we are on a decline. You can see our distribution of ethnicities, right? We are roughly 45% white, 30% Hispanic, and so on. And then you see some of our program participation that we display. Something that's not on here is we have roughly 65 languages spoken in the district. And then for those of you who are not familiar with Arizona, though I think it's kind of hard not to be in today's educational climate, there is a lot of school choice. So there's an abundance of competition, not just amongst charter schools, but now homeschool and private schools with the expansion of the voucher system. So it is a tough climate to be in, which is part of why we try to leverage our data to benefit our students, our teachers, and our organization. All right, so a little bit, next slide, please, Ken, about our analytics journey. I think like most folks, the district started in Excel. Everyone operated their own Excel file, right? They did their own thing. There was no clear focus or collective goal. So about a decade ago, Tableau was brought to the district. At the time, the district also, everyone's probably familiar with the book DataWise. That was very popular. There was a giant book study, and the shift to not just businesses, but education becoming data focused really occurred. And so the goal with bringing Tableau to the district was, in essence, to make sure everyone's looking at the same data set, coming to the same conclusions, right? And really trying to drive student success. That is really where Tableau for us lives. We have not dove into like the business side and stuff yet. We'll get there, but we really hone in on student success. In terms of a rollout, if you are new or if you've been with Tableau for a long time, it is a slow process. So initially it was created for superintendent and cabinet. Slow addition of visualizations, right? You don't go overwhelm everyone with all the data all at once. That gained momentum. So as they expanded visualizations, the creation of them, so did the need to expand to different levels of staff. So it started then at site leaders, so principals, directors, then it expanded to assistant principals, deans, right? And then there was access given to counselors. And now we've phased into the teacher level. And that's what Ken is going to show you a lot today. I don't necessarily have analytics on how much time it took everyone to access all the data, but I can tell you that for a district that peaked at 46,000 students, right, 5,500 employees, that when everyone is doing their own thing in an Excel file, there is a lack of consistency. We don't know who used what data. We don't know how it was being used. We don't know how it was being implemented. And so that is what caused us to really shift into accessing Tableau. So what did we do? What do we continue to do? We really are very strategic and intentional with our plans. So we hold data workshops. Last year we held one every quarter, mandatory for every site leader, and then we expand depending on what data is being looked at. We expand to other staff roles because it should not just be the principal's battle to look at data, right? So we're really trying to expand capacity and build capacity in all of our staff. Everybody has a piece of the puzzle to help drive student success. We expect our site leaders to use data with their teams at staff meetings, PLCs. It is a requirement and has been for many years of their site learning plans, their annual learning plan. And then most recently, we redid our strategic plan. So we now have Journey to Excellence, and we have called out specific objectives and strategies related to being data-driven as an organization, right? So it's a very strategic, intentional focus. Because we've had Tableau for over 10 years, I think this number is alarming, in a good way. We have over 860 views. That's 203 workbooks, 41 projects. That is an abundance of data, that we attempt to manage. And I've listed just some of our key areas, right? All of our assessments, we monitor enrollment data very closely, especially given the climate of Arizona. We have district level data, employee, school, teacher, student, and then we have a whole dashboards for our surveys. With that, I have a team of 4 programmers, just so that for those who are interested in how it works, we have 4 programmers. They monitor our visualizations, they gather input from stakeholders. We are always trying to maintain and enhance our visualizations to ensure that we're fresh, that they're user friendly. So one of the things that before I shift into the expansion here, I do want to talk about is when Tableau started at the top, I call it a choose your own adventure. If you remember those books from my childhood, right, where you picked which chapter you got to move to next based on what you would do. Many of our visualizations were built with 10 to 15 filters down the side. And you had to know what you were looking for. You had to be really data savvy to use Tableau effectively. And since I've started at the district and come in kind of with a different viewpoint, we realized this wasn't working for staff. They don't have time. They might not have the data expertise, right? And then they just don't know what to do with it once they find something. So we've really shifted away from a choose your own adventure to telling folks what they need to see and making the data meaningful and valuable for them. And this is how we kind of scaled to our teachers, okay? So a couple of things on this slide. First, and Kelly can speak to this as well, we used to have our own Tableau server and we shifted to the cloud for multiple reasons. Our server is operated by our IS or IT, right, our tech team. And so when updates needed to happen, we have to rely on a different department. Everyone knows that can be good and bad, right? So we wanted to be able to control Tableau ourselves. We needed more server capacity. We love Tableau, but y'all know they put those limits in on how much you can have, and then you got to pay more, right? So we needed more server capacity, especially with our 800 plus views that we have. And we knew we wanted to expand access to outside our internal network. I have that little bullet point there. We literally had principals who would drive to the nearest in-network parking lot just to access Tableau on the weekends. They would go on Sunday after church and they'd tell me, I'm driving to this campus because I need to get on Tableau. And I understand why we did it, to protect the data, but if we want our staff to use data meaningfully and have access to it, we really needed to provide that. So we did shift from our own server to Tableau Cloud. And then we also shifted to expanding our access to teachers, which occurred naturally. And again, we've been in the game for 10 years now. Okay, so we've aligned with the district vision, right? Our new strategic plan. We wanted to empower our teachers instead of them having to rely on site leaders. And I think the site leaders got tired of having to share this information with their teachers instead of us just saying, here, teachers, let's empower you to have this. Financial backing we talk about, just because I know it can be costly being on the cloud. We pay per license. So we did work with our sales rep who has secured some amazing pricing for us. And then one thing we are permitted to do is if we can prove and demonstrate at least a 20% savings, we are allowed to purchase 3 years at a time. So just for those considering how to expand or what's happening, that was a really important element for us. We were able to save over $500,000 by doing a 3-year agreement instead of a single year. Just Kent, before you flip to the next page, because Kent's going to demo for you some things. We do hold our own Tableau user groups with our stakeholders. It is important. We are not in the field. We are not with students on a day-to-day basis. We do not know their every need. So we design the visualizations and then we gather their feedback. We added almost 2,800 licenses with this expansion to teachers. So almost all of our certified teachers do have access to Tableau now and these dashboards that Ken is going to display for you. And like I said, we really shifted how we look at data, and you'll see that here, that we are telling them what story needs to be, what story they need to see and how they should interpret the data. We're not leaving it up for interpretation anymore. We tell you what to see and what you should be looking at, with the key objective being student success. All right, Kent, the fun part.
So one of our use cases that we wanted to touch on today is our student dashboard. So I'm going to swap to the
While Kent is swapping, we're gonna demo directly in Tableau, because we have a training folder for our instructional coaches, our assessment specialists, that has fake Harry Potter data. So that even if they don't have access to student grades or something, the people in the district who need to support our staff still know what's happening and can help our teachers.
So one of the key use cases for Tableau within Chandler Unified School District has been our student dashboard. Now, a student dashboard is something that we like to think about as our student baseball card. So it really provides a high-level overview of all the details that you need to know about a student. So for instance, for this example, we have Harry Potter. He's Hispanic, and we can see some of his enrollment data here at the top. And then additionally, we even have on the left-hand side, you can see his vision and hearing results. So you can see, oh, did they pass their vision testing and things of that sort. And then additionally below, you can see that they participate in athletics, so we provide any programs they might be participating in. And then below that, we provide our student success indicators. Now, within Chandler Unified School District, we have a few different student success indicators. One being attendance, are they attending class? Then also behavior, so are they receiving any behavior referrals? And then courses, so how are they doing on their grades? And then we provide a composite at the end that aggregates all these together to determine how are they doing more broadly. And then below our student success indicators, we have the student grades. And so this provides more of a report card view for that student. So you can see across their different subjects, how are they doing, how have they done more historically. And then below the report card, we have our student assessments. So you can see historically how students have done on their previous assessments. So for ASA, our statewide testing, and AZ side as well. So it helps provide their performance levels, and you can see, okay, this student might be struggling more in English or math. Then moving on to the primary reason for this presentation, we wanted to showcase our teacher dashboard. So I'm going to swap what I'm sharing real quick. So this is our teacher dashboard. So the idea behind the teacher dashboard is that we really want to tell teachers a story of their class. So at the top of the dashboard, you'll see that we have a student count. So we provide the number of students that are in that class, as well as a breakdown of the ratio of male to female. So you kind of get an idea of, oh, do we have more boys than girls? And then additionally, we also provide the breakdown of race ethnicity. So for this example, for Pomona Sprout's potions class for Slytherin, you can see that the overwhelming majority of students are white, 69%. And then we wanted to provide a breakdown of some different key indicators for how this class is doing. So on the far left-hand side, you'll see assessments. Now for assessments, you can see for this class, they've been struggling a little bit. So for their ELA, they've only been passing about 32.1% for last year, as well as 17% for math and 39% for science. And then we also have buttons on this teacher dashboard to try and provide more context and information for some of these higher level data points. So if you click on that assessment links button, we have an assessments link dashboard as well. So essentially this helps provide an overview to other dashboards we've made for these assessments for teachers. So the key point here is that these assessment dashboards that we built provide prior year assessment data for their current class rosters. So you can see their benchmark data throughout the year, as well as their ACT, ACT Aspire, and their statewide testing. And then additionally, we also provide their ACELA data and their DIBELS for screening purposes. And then at the bottom of this assessment view, we help to provide links to other assessments. So on our Chandler Unified School District website, we provide different information on each of these assessments. And so here at the bottom of this page, we've linked to each of these so they can get more information on the assessment if they'd like it. Now we click back on the home button, and this drives us back home to the teacher dashboard. And then moving on to grades, so for Pomona Sprouts class, you can see that 21% of students have an A, 7% have a B, 28% have a C, 24% have a D, and 21% have an F. So it gives you a very broad overview of how the grades are for the in progress term. And then if you want more information, you can click the summary breakdown button that we provided. Now, when you click on the summary breakdown button, we're really trying to help tell a story for the teacher. How are your students in this class doing, and how are they doing compared to students taking the same exact course section across the school as well as the district? And one important keynote for this is that we want to provide a story both with the data visualization as well as some text to help explain and elaborate on what exactly this data is trying to tell you. So for this example, you can see that 55.2% of students in this course section are passing, and this is 5.5% lower compared to the school average of 60.7%, and 11% lower compared to the district average of 66.1% for proportions. Then you can see a breakdown of the grade distribution. So this class might have less students in the B, but they do have more students that are in the C, and it does look like they have more students in the D for part of the grade distribution as well. And then we wanted to break down the grade percent. So on this right-hand side, you can see we tell a story for the grade percent as well. So the average grade percent in this course section is 71.5%, and this is 1.7% lower in comparison to the school average, and 3.5% lower in comparison to the district average. And now, so this provides a more high-level overview as to how they're doing it compared to their peers at the school and the district level, but we also want to provide some data available at the student level as well. So you can click on the student breakdown button, and it drives you to another page. So we have this listed and it's sorted by grade percent. So the students performing the lowest are at the top. But if you scroll down here and we look at the students in the maybe C section, so Draco Malfoy for this example, he's in the period 6 Pomona Sprouts class. He has no flag, so he's not special education, and he's not participating in any other programs that we provide in the district. He has a C that has a 73.3% of the class, and the 73.3% is 1.8% higher than the class average, 0.1% higher than the school average for this course section, and 1.6% lower than the district average for this course section. So really, we're trying to give you some perspective as to how students are doing compared to their peers, not just in this course section, but also overall compared to the school and the district. And then you can also see up here, we try to provide an Excel or a PDF button on each of our dashboards, so a teacher can easily download this and look at this and compare. And additionally, for our filters, you'll notice that we try to provide a very small amount of filters. We do not want to overwhelm teachers with the amount of filters. And so for this example, you can see the teacher's section information, and then we have different flags that they can sort their student list by as well. Now, going back to the teacher dashboard homepage, we also have an attendance portion. So this attendance portion on the homepage helps provide an overview of their last 20 days absence rate. So over the last 20 days of school, 6% of students, or 6% of days have been absent for students across the section. And then you can click on this button to get a further breakdown of a summary as well. So for our attendance portion, we try to tell a story very similarly to the grades portion. So you can see on this left-hand side, we're trying to tell you how students are doing on their SSI attendance in comparison to the rest of the district and the rest of the school. So for this example, 51.7% of students in this course section have an attendance of moderate or extreme, and this is 4% worse compared to the school average and 2.3% worse compared to the district average. And then additionally, for the absence rate, you can see students in this course section have been absent 5.9% of the last 20 enrolled school days, which is 0.1% better than the school average and 1.3% better than the district average for students taking this potions course. And so the important keynote here is that with these words that we're providing, and in addition to the data visualization, is it helps dynamically update a story to the teachers. So every teacher in every section is getting a unique story as to how their class did. And then the bottom right-hand portion, we provide the tardies per student. So you can see that students in this course section have accrued an average of 5.9 average tardies across their classes. And this is 0.6 tardies worse than the school average, and 0.2 tardies worse than the district average for students also taking potions. And then similarly to the grade student list I showed you earlier, we have a student list for attendance as well. So on this attendance page, you can see here for Harry Travers, we'll use him as an example. He's in Pomona Sprout's 6th period potions class. He doesn't have any flags, but his SSI attendance is extreme. And what's it tells us? Well, he's not really late to class, but he is missing quite a few days. And for the in progress year, you can see that he's chronically absent, as indicated by this red flag. But recently, it looks like Harry is actually starting to come to class because over the last 20 days, he has a 0% absence rate. And the 0% absence rate is actually 5.9% better than the class, 5.9% better than the school average, and 7.1% better than the district average. So in Harry's case, you can see, he's having attendance problems, but more recently it's improved. Going on to our breakdown of SSI behavior, you can see overall in this class, 93% of the students are exemplary in their SSI behavior, and 7% are moderate. And if we click on this breakdown button, it drives us to a page similar when we're trying to tell another story, but we also are more limited on what behavior data we're allowed to show and share across the district. So it's a little bit more limited than the grades and the attendance portion that we just showed. So for this example, 6.9% of students in this core section have an SSI behavior of moderate or extreme, and this is 3.6% worse compared to the school average and 4.5% worse compared to the district average. And we also display this in a graph, and we also provide a student breakdown that you can click on, similarly to the other views I had shown. So for this example, we don't have many events in this class, but for Adrian, you can see that they're in the 6th period potions. They don't have any flags, but they have an SSI behavior of moderate because they've been referred for behavior once, and they've been suspended once as well. And then you can see in Amicus's case, they have a flag of a 504. So 504 special education, some other flags that we provide in the student list as well. Going back to the home page of the teacher dashboard, you might have noticed on this right-hand side, we actually provide the birthdays for the students in the course. And we're working on one of the key features that we want to sort by the most recent birthday. So you can kind of get an idea of what students are coming up. And a lot of teachers have really commented on how they like this and how it's really been able to help them connect with some of their students and their birthdays. And then something else that's highly important to this teacher dashboard is we provide an overview student list. And the idea behind this overview student list is that it breaks down all these different key metrics for each student for this term and for this school year. So you can see in this example for Blaze, Blaze at the top. They're in potions period 6. They have no flags. We give their testing performance right here so you can see they were not proficient on each of their tests. They have a letter grade of an F with a 44% in the class. And maybe they have an F in the class because they're not attending, because it looks like they have an SSI attendance of moderate, so they're really not attending class. They're not chronically absent, but it's enough attendance issues that might be causing some problems. So we try to provide this student list to teachers so they can see how are my students doing on their grades and how might some of these other key metrics be interplaying with that grade performance there. And so that's kind of a key overview of the teacher dashboard. There were a few other things I wanted to just briefly mention about how this is structured. So some other key points that the teacher dashboard, so essentially we made the teacher dashboard because we wanted teachers to be empowered to provide a high quality education and make data-driven decisions. This teacher dashboard was built on some custom tables in our data warehouse, and this is populated by our SIS, which is Infinite Campus. We didn't want to provide teachers with too many filters, so we really made sure to narrow down exactly how many we were providing. The graphics for the dashboards were made in Figma by myself, and essentially the idea is that I use as a background image in each of my dashboards and layer the visualizations on top of it. And the idea behind the teacher dashboard is that we want teachers to be able to see data for the students that they're currently teaching. And so there's not as much historical data on it. The data for this dashboard is also refreshed nightly. And a lot of the feedback that we provide for the teacher dashboard has been provided through workshops. So we've hosted a lot of workshops with principals and teachers to receive feedback. So this has gone through iterations over the last year or so since we've built it.
All right, Kenton, thank you. I mean, Dr. Woods, thank you. Thank you so much. What, do you have any more that you want to demo before we hop into questions?
That's it for demoing for us.
Okay. I think if you wouldn't mind, if you could just keep that up, because I'm not sure if some questions might require you to hop back into things, but I'm going to do my best to get through these questions. Thank you all so much for using the Q&A. We will start there, and then we'll also scan the chat and make sure we didn't miss anything. But I think where we want to start is sort of what you just touched on, which was like the design element, which we've all talked about as well, just how you guys kind of approach this from a way that, in my opinion, feels very welcoming. It feels very non-threatening. With the imagery, with the use of color. And so there's been a few questions about that. Can you guys go into a little bit more detail into just your approach on design? And one question specifically was asking, have you found that teachers and admins seem more receptive and are retaining more of the information because of some of these design choices, such as using art and things of that nature?
So I would say that I take a lot of inspiration for the design for the dashboard from some of the visualizations of the day that Tableau has provided. In addition to, there's a social media platform out there called Dribble. And essentially it's a social media platform for design where people share ideas and how they're designing different applications. And I think that that's really a good space to be poking your head around if you're interested in design. And so really I kind of focused on maybe more of a minimalistic, providing very little or as little as possible to get the points across. So it's one of those things where you don't want to provide too much information that people feel overwhelmed. And so I think that we really focused on maybe more of like a modern, minimalistic kind of aesthetic for it.
Yeah, awesome. Jen, do you have any? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. We do a couple other things. We try to have consistency in all of our color palettes across all of our dashboards, font, right? We try to make sure everything is consistent. You'll see in the upper left by the, where it says teacher dashboard home, we put the school mascots. So it's personalized to their school. And so on other dashboards that are school level, we use the school colors for bar graphs, charts, any of that things. So we really try to personalize it for them. Because it makes it feel like their own and it's their place to really do things. And we have seen, we just rolled this out with elementary teachers in July, but our secondary teachers have been in it since last January. And we are seeing some really great usage. The data does update nightly, as Kent said. But we have teachers who are in it every day, poking around, looking at it, diving into the student details, because we really want to make sure that they know their students. And I know sometimes we say that's easier at elementary, right? Because you have your class for the whole day, whereas at secondary, their period changes, that class changes every 40, 50 minutes, whatever the schedule may be. And so this really helps them make sure they know their kids, which helps them develop relationships and really helps them drive that student success, right? It's not just always about academics, it's about being that well-rounded teacher who can provide that safe space and welcoming environment for the child.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully said. I think just to kind of tie a bow on this topic, make sure we didn't miss anything, because there's a few questions. Tools used for the backgrounds and images, any custom add-ons or utilities in terms of the aesthetic. You mentioned the Dribble, you mentioned Figma. Are there any others that people should be aware of?
I just use Figma, honestly, for 99% of it. I use it for graphics. I make my own icons, and I use that across my dashboard. So yeah, it's pretty exclusively Figma as like a complementary piece to using Tableau.
Awesome. Is the A, B, C, D, F done using text, images, icons, or something else?
So I use images for those. So those were images that I made. And then I essentially made a bar graph and then did what's called like a dual axis. And on the second axis, I used the images. So it essentially puts the letter grade at the top of the bar graph is essentially what I did.
Okay. Another comment on design. The cards are sweet. How did you do the shadows in the background?
So in Figma, there's a way to allow or create shadows, and I watched a ton of YouTube tutorials on how to do that because I came in with no Figma experience in this job currently, so it was something I just kind of learned on the fly. And so yeah, it's just lots of YouTube videos for shadows.
Awesome. Okay. Let's see here. In terms of, let me go back to the top here. I was trying to group this in my head. Let's talk about, you mentioned you have over 860 reports. Do you have a catalog? How do you manage that?
So it's kind of managed in how we design the homepage of Tableau. So we try to reduce the number of choices they have, and we do everything. If it's an assessment, it's in an assessment folder, right? We catalog it by, if it's a district level, it's in our called profile district, profile school, and we reduce how many things they see at the front. One of our key goals, which we will hopefully get to in a year or two, is we have a school dashboard, kind of like you saw at a district level for every school. And we want to start using that. It looks similar to this, right, with all the different data points to drive them to the details. So it's really in how we design the homepage for them and how we folder things. I'm a Windows gal, so I like to use the word folders. That's what makes sense for me, right? But in Tableau terms, right? What project level workbook and things. And then a lot of our training is hands-on during our workshops. One thing we didn't show you, but that we can certainly put in the link, it is available publicly, is we have YouTube videos for our teacher training that walk them through how to interpret this data, how to use the dashboard, how to use the student dashboard. And so we've started designing more trainings now that we're expanding access that don't require you to have a person in front of you, that you can watch at your leisure and when it needs. We keep those to be very short videos because we know people don't have time for a 30-minute session on using Tableau. So each section is chunked into like a 3 to 5 minute video for our staff.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I did not know about the YouTube. That's amazing. I think
we'll
also
put it in the link.
Okay, good, because people will be asking. Darren and other folks on the call as well, Tableau also has a cataloging solution as well, if that's something that you want to kind of take a look at, if you don't have an in-house solution that you're using. All right, moving right along. Jen, how many analysts do you have? How big is your team that's working with Tableau?
So I have 4 programmers, 3 full-time, 1 part-time.
Okay.
And it is a heavy lift, maintaining 800 some views in addition to the everyday requests that we get. It's amazing when people love data, but it's also very challenging to prioritize and upkeep with everyone's asks. And as those of you who use Tableau and know, each stakeholder wants something just slightly different. Somebody wants something vertical instead of horizontal. And you all know that's not such a simple change to make. So there are 3 full-time, 1 part-time. I would love more, but we're also declining. So we just do the best we can with prioritizing.
Awesome. As far as the assessment data that you all touched on, does that assessment data feed first into your SIS, which I know you mentioned is Infinite Campus, and then you're pulling from there, or is it a yes and, or can you speak through that a little bit?
Yeah, Kent, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, so we have a data lake in our data warehouse that's imported to, and that syncs with our SIS Infinite Campus. And then we use everything collected from the data warehouse. So all the data built on that teacher dashboard, displayed on that teacher dashboard, is from our data warehouse. So that's essentially how that process works for us.
But with the primary source of truth for, I would say 95% of our assessment sources being Infinite Campus, right? We look there first and then flow in because it does go in our assessment tab. That's where teachers used to be able to see it, but it can be unwieldy trying to find that information through your student information system.
In thinking through, there was a question around underlying calculation. So yes, the student success indicators that you guys touched on, what were the underlying calculations for that? And does that also pull from a field in the SIS, or is that apart from that?
Okay, so that was some crazy algorithms that were created 8 to 9 years ago.
Okay.
They are very finite and detailed for each element of it that I don't even think we have time to elaborate on today. But yes,
Okay.
the attendance, grades, and behavior all drives from Infinite Campus. So those were things that are already in the system, and then we just again, they created what type of system that they want to look at. For the SSIS, we only focus on core courses. We don't include electives, which has been a discussion for something that should we change in the future, because it'll throw a principal off. They'll say, but I know this kid is really struggling, but I see that they're doing really well on here. Well, they're doing really well in their core. They're struggling in electives. So that has been on the task list to enhance for 2 years now. It is such a giant undertaking, though, that we have yet to get to it.
Yeah. So I'm assuming primarily you focus on the core classes just because that is accountability and tied to the assessments, et cetera. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Critical to graduation.
Yeah. There's an interesting question here. Do you still have a student information management system? I know the answer is yes, but is the dashboard now sort of the primary tool that teachers are going to? Or can you speak to just sort of how they're using both and in what way?
Yeah, I mean, they still have to go through Infinite Campus to input their grades, right? All discipline events, behavior are still inputted through Infinite Campus. But one of the reasons we pushed our teachers to use Tableau in addition is because Infinite Campus doesn't have pretty pictures. That's the true reason, right? You have to learn how to pull the report. What do you want to look at? Does it make sense? And so we are driving our teachers to Tableau to get big picture and finite details. I don't know that I have analytics yet to tell you if who's going where, but we hope that over the next course of the year, as the full rollout for all pre-K12 exists, that we will see fewer of them using Infinite Campus, unless it's for a specific need that we have yet to address in Tableau.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for addressing that. I think that touches on another question, which is in regard to like adoption by teachers. I know you don't have kind of the stats on hand, but do you have a sense of how teachers like are using or coming back to the dashboard, or do you have a plan to monitor that?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. So for secondary, we actually meet with them here in a little over a month to review and see how it's going. We do know for a lot of secondary teachers, they are coming in, especially for attendance. Attendance is much easier to see in Tableau than it is in terms of Infinite Campus, right? Because you can see that chronic absence flag, right? It's all put together for you. So attendance is driving a lot of people there. The birthdays, we hear a lot about people love the birthdays.
Amazing.
You all know as educators, we love to celebrate. And unfortunately, with our student information systems, we don't gather a lot of positive data. So birthdays was one way we could try to put something positive into the picture for them. But we will meet with the secondary in a month and a half or so, and then we meet with elementary second semester. We wanted to give them a chance to get in and get a feel for it before we, ask them, how's it going? What are you doing? How many times are you logging in?
Right. Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I think you had mentioned like your instructional coaches and stuff are pretty hands-on with this. Are they sort of helping with the adoption and usage?
Yep, so that's why we have the training folder and it's all the fake data. So that way because our security, we have site level security, we have row level security at a teacher level. So you only have access to your section, right? By law, we can't give you access to everyone. And so we have the training available for the coaches at a district level so that they can go in and support. Now, they might not see the exact data, obviously, that the teachers see, but they can then walk them through it, and they've all been trained on teacher-student dashboard and using it. So our special ed coaches, our instructional coaches, our assessment specialists, our EL coaches, all hands on deck. Everybody is trying to support the work.
Amazing. Okay, I'm going to go a little faster on some of these that are a bit more granular about the actual dashboard. Will clicking the data open an export of student lists? For example, clicking 5.9%.
So clicking on the data doesn't provide an export, but we try to provide export button on each of the dashboards. So at the top, you'd have like an Excel button, but clicking on the list itself would provide an export.
Okay. Is there a different focus for secondary 9 through 12, for example, on-track graduation, course credits, etc.?
Ooh, I love this question. Currently, no, but that is something that we are working on building with the Infinite Campus team. Is we need a better grad tracker system. We kind of have an antiquated system in Chandler that's very paper pencil based and accumulates a lot of errors due to human error, right? And so we are starting to see those distinctions once we get systems like that in place.
Awesome. I think to that end, I love this question coming up. Curious to hear more about the shift away from choose your own adventure. Can you give an example of what a dashboard or data element used to look like that you intentionally changed to make it more user-friendly?
So take the picture on the screen. Instead of at the top class overview, you take one big, let's say it's a bar chart, and then down the right-hand side, you would just see 15 filters. So you would see school year, you would see school, you would see demographic, race, ethnicity, grade, you would see subject, like let's say it's an assessment, right? And so you would have to know, okay, I want to look at ELA and I want to look at this grade, and now I want to disaggregate it by white. And then I'm going to do that. I'm going to take a screenshot of it. And now I want to compare that to my African-American kids. So now I'm going to change my filter, and now I'm going to take a screenshot and I'm going to move those to a Word document. Literally choose your own adventure.
You guys you've come a long way.
We have come a long way.
A couple more questions wanting to know about people on staff. You mentioned the 4 kind of programmers. How many roughly are using or are working within Tableau all the time, or what percentage are using Tableau?
Mine are mostly all the time. I have one programmer who he predominantly focuses on the back-end data. So he's the one importing all the assessments, all of the survey data, importing that, loading it to Infinite Campus. There is a programmer on the IT side of the house that manages the data warehouse. So we don't officially manage the data warehouse because that's a go-between between Infinite Campus and our needs. So that's in a different team. But other than the one programmer who does most of our backend data, everyone else on the team is front end building Tableau visualizations.
Awesome. That leads me to the next question, which is about how often are they getting requests for change? Some people are struggling with getting people to use what's there before they are asking for an edit or an update.
We get requests all the time. So we actually keep a request document for all requests. So unless it's something that I or they hear repeatedly being asked, it's not a high priority for us. It's let's look at it at the next iteration. Usually we get requests when it's related to assessment data. And so we'll wait to do an enhancement until there'll be another load of assessment data. Otherwise, we're duplicating efforts. So we try to prioritize in that way and make sure it's something that would be meaningful for all. And if we're not sure, I will take it and I'll email it out to, if it's an elementary request, and I'll ask the principals and I say, give me some feedback. Is this truly a need?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You got to manage and protect time, I'm sure. Okay, let's see. Getting back to the data warehouse, there was a couple questions about just sort of how did you go about that? How long did it take to get stood up? I know you guys have had that for quite some time. Just high level, what did that process look like for you?
Oh yeah, that has been in the district for a long time.
Yeah.
It is an ongoing process. So, I mean, it's stood up, but I will say you all are familiar with data, and data changes all the time. So that is a beast, and that is why there's a single programmer that is responsible for managing data warehouse, because they have to know every itty-gritty detail. They have a wiki page. Everything is documented. From a process improvement standpoint, they take very detailed notes about every change and who requested the change and why the change was requested. So it is incredibly valuable to have a data warehouse because it is our one-stop shop for clean data, but it does require an abundance of upkeep. I love ACT and SAT, but every dang year they change their file layout, right? And that's a whole nother thing we have to deal with just to get the data into the already created visualizations in Tableau. So you all know
Yeah.
it's not a one and done. I love our teachers and our principals, and they're like, can't you just push that magic button? Doesn't
Yeah.
it just flow in? No, sometimes the data doesn't just magically come into the visualization. It takes time.
Well, see, you guys just make it look so easy with this dashboard, you know? I do want to kind of plug, I guess, or just let people know on the call, we also have a very robust ecosystem of K12 partners and consultants. So if you are someone that's like, we don't even have a warehouse, where do we start? That would be my recommendation. You don't have to take on all this work your own. I mean, Chandler has, and they've done a phenomenal job, but that's maybe not an option for everyone on the call. So just know that is something that you can explore, and that your account reps can help you get plugged into our various partners. All right, rocking and rolling here. Sorry. All right, Kent, this is maybe for you. We're talking calculations. You ready? Do teachers ask about the calculations of absence rate, or is it a commonly understood and used measure? That's part one. Part two, I noticed a time component in the attendance data. Are you considering incorporating other metrics around change over time?
Now, so starting with the first question, can you repeat the first question?
I already clicked
Yeah, sorry.
done on it. What are the metrics behind the attendance rate, and are they commonly understood by teachers and staff?
Yeah, so it's just, we're taking the number of absences divided by the number of enrolled days for that course section. So it's not an overly complex calculation and so speaking with teachers and hosting these workshops, we haven't received any feedback that the absence rate calculation has been an issue. So I think that it's generally been pretty well received.
Awesome. And then the second part of that question, I'm trying to find it again, was do you have other metrics in mind, I think, for the future to measure things over time? In this case, you're looking at attendance on that 20-day roll, but are there others that you have?
You know, we could look at, like historically, you could look at daily enrollment over the course of a school year or a term. So that's something you could consider. I think at this current point, I don't think it's on the short list of enhancements or adjustments to be made, but I think it is something maybe to consider long term. So
Awesome.
Just to add, Kelly, so keep in mind, this is just what our teachers see. We have an entire attendance visualization that looks at data by day, month,
Oh, okay, yeah.
quarter, semester that all site leaders have. So we expect them to be used in tandem, right? So that site leaders are evaluating at a higher level, big picture, where our teachers, for now at least, stay kind of in the most recent data and how can they support the students.
Yeah, that's a great call out. Yeah, so and then that gets a little bit back to understanding your user and sort of row level security implications, as well as making sure that the content that you all are pushing out makes sense for the role and the level of access needed for that end user. Getting back to data sources, we've talked about how primarily you're pulling from your SIS. There are a few questions about, one is, are you considering integrating some of your SIS data with special education information that may be living in a different system? And then kind of to that end, does your are there other dashboards you all are using that are pulling from data sources outside of the SIS that maybe you could touch on?
So special ed, that student support services, they have their own workbook in Tableau that they have access to. Obviously, we make very conscious decisions about who gets access to what information and when and how. So at the current time, there hasn't been an ask, but I absolutely see where the question came from, right? Like maybe giving teacher that access to that IEP in here
Right.
might be meaningful. So I absolutely love the question. And it is something that we will continue to work with that team on, because the reason you see the special ed, the 504, the EL flags is we do find that our teachers often don't know those accommodations exist. So making it easier for folks to access that information, I think is a brilliant idea. And I did the same thing. What was the second question, Kelly? Sorry.
It's about asking around the dashboard
the other
pulled solely from
sources.
the SIS.
Yes,
Yeah.
other data sources. Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney. Yes. Yeah, so like all of our survey data, we collect, we use Qualtrics for our survey, so survey data goes into the lake. And so then we use the lake for other avenues that doesn't come from the SIS. So anything else gets pushed into the lake predominantly. So again, we need a one source of truth for all of our data.
Anything on the horizon working with, there's a question about predictions, kind of early warning. I'll touch on that. We've got something coming down in the next month from the National K12 Tug with early warnings, but are you guys doing anything to help people predict kiddos that may need some extra support?
So our SIS is our best effort at this time because it does the risk category level. I know that's not officially a prediction, but we have explored and looked at some of what Tableau has and what others are doing. And so that is a direction we'd love to head next. Absolutely. You got to get to them before it happens rather than after it's too late.
Right, right. Okay, I think we've got time for a couple more. I cannot believe the amount of questions that came in. This is amazing. Everyone has been so active and engaged. Thank you all so much. If I can't get to all of them, we will try to follow up via email. But one question that I think is really important to address on the call is, what is your advice for people who are just getting started? Like how do you start and what should you do?
Well, I'll start and then I'll let Ken answer from a design standpoint. My PhD is actually in communication, and I think that's one of the reasons I look at things the way that I do, is always know your audience, right? So design for your audience in mind and keep in mind their capabilities that may or may not exist, right? Their time, their capacity. And that's really why we made the shift, is because post-COVID, there aren't extra hours in a day for you to take analyzing data, right? So we really needed to think who got what data for what purpose, and how do we make it easy for them to make sense of it. So I really would start with just what's the first stakeholder group you think it would be most critical, and then what exactly do they need, and how do you make it easy for them to make sense of?
Yeah, amazing. Ken, what about you?
I think that from like the dashboard creator side of things, I think that spending a lot of time in the community on the different platforms that the community has presence on. So for instance, I think there's a few different avenues. One I use is Reddit. I know there's an active and engaged Tableau community on Reddit where you can see kind of a lot of different ideas being tossed around on updates and changes. And then I think that Twitter, or now X, has a good positive community for Tableau. And then also, I think that YouTube and things of that sort, really spending time delving into the community, seeing what people are talking about related to Tableau and the new features being added, and also some maybe more advanced tips and tricks that might be used in Tableau desktop as well. I think via those different community avenues.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. There are some real Tableau evangelists out there that I think, definitely are a great resource. Unfortunately, we are at time. I have one thing that I need to present kind of as we close out for future events that we want to make sure people are aware of. Thank you guys so much. Are you all open to connecting possibly with other people in the community?
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. Let me share this screen really quick as we close out so that people are aware of some other things that we have coming up. I think if you guys could unshare, maybe I can just share. Okay. So as the Chandler team pointed out, we do have a K12 community that's very active. Please get involved. We would love to have you, and we are here for you. Two things coming up as we close out. There is a webinar actually on Thursday, the future of Tableau, all around some product updates in terms of cloud, AI, things that are coming down the pike that would be really interesting for people to tune into and learn about. And then our next National K12 user group meeting is on September 3rd. So they'll be covering time series, they'll be covering early warning indicator dashboards, and a presentation from one of our partners as well. So if you need anything, please reach out. We will follow up with you. Thank you again so much for your time. And thank you, Chandler Unified, for this amazing presentation. Very grateful for your time today. And with that, I think that's a wrap.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.